So now, I make a strong effort to open the lines of communication and just, listen to people better and understand how they feel. Because really, for a lot of people, work used to just be a paycheck, but now I think this next generation of workers coming in, they want a more holistic approach to their job, right? They want to find purpose and meaning through it and all that. And if those things aren't communicated well, then there's oftentimes a breakdown, not just between co-founders, but employees. Welcome to the Bad Business Friends YouTube channel. I'm Scott Shin, founder of Revival Jewelry, here with Jacob Pazos, founder of Jacob Mark Jewelers. A lot of entrepreneurship podcasts and YouTube channels want to share their success stories. We're here to share our stories of failure with you for your benefit, or at the very least, so you can get a laugh out of it. So Jacob, to continue our conversation from last time about why we failed as business partners. It seems like a lot of co-founders who are friends often fail to remain co-founders, even if this company continues to grow. I mean, there are exceptions. I think do you know the podcast How I Built This with Guy Raz? You ever?
Yeah.
So there's more often than not, co-founders don't stick together, but there were a few success stories. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I heard an episode on Method. They make the soaps and all that. You find them at Target. They were still working together. Ben and Jerry's, I think. So it's definitely doable, but oftentimes it doesn't happen. And in our case, we parted ways. Why do you think this is the case like that more often than not? I mean, you can share about why we in particular failed, but you think.
Yeah. I think to touch on like last episode, I think it's a lot of pressure, right? But I think if we go into more detail, I want to say everyone would be able to relate to this to some degree, that when you're going into a business, you're talking about somebody's security, right? And at the very base level of life in general, people want security, when you get into business with someone, there's the minimum, the very minimum that's constantly in the back of your mind is your security being threatened, right? What if this doesn't work? What if we fail? What if whatever it may be? And the end goal and result in your mind is, if this thing fails, I lose my sense of security,
Sure.
What I was spending my time building, what I was investing my money in, what I was doing, whatever. And I think that is a lot of pressure for people. And when there's disagreements, when there's arguments, when there's discussions, whatever it may be, I feel like that subliminally, that threat is there, and you're trying to figure out how to avoid it, but there's no real way to avoid it except for having a successful business, which takes time, So it's this constant kind of, anxiety, I think.
So for you, it was a fear of security breaking down, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think, because don't get me wrong, I was at the time living pretty minimalist, but so it wasn't like I was going to lose everything or anything like that. It was more so, we've got this hope to build something, and the one thing I can't get back or make back is my time, my life.
Uh-huh.
And like we said, this started back in 2018 is when we started selling, right? But for the year and a half, 2 years before then, 2016 is when we really started. So from 2016 until I was there in
2017 to 18.
2017.
Yeah.
2017 through 2021, whatever it was that I left, that time you don't know if this is going to work. We're standing here looking back, but at that time we're standing there looking forward, hoping, and that's all you've got is hope. And in my mind, I'm like, if 4 years from now, 5 years from now, when's this going to take off? If it will take off,
Mm-hmm.
and like, at the very least, you've lost time, and you hope to God that the time that you've lost is paid off for something, you know. It's a very scary thought. And it's a ton in my mind. That was a ton of pressure. Like,
Sure.
what if I fast forward and I'm 30 and this thing is
So you
still
were more worried about the future, even though, because from what I recall, the time you left, I thought that was when we were experiencing growth and success. I thought you were actually finally making a good salary, because we for a whole year we didn't make anything, right? So, but
right, right. Yeah. I'd say that was I am speaking from the context more so of when we were in that beginning phase, I should say. Because I noticed our dialogue would like slowly start switching to more co-founder to co-founder rather than friend to friend. And I think that in my mind, that was the first pressure was like, okay, we need to make this happen. You know, we need to do something. We need to actually see money from this. That was the first pressure that I think caused maybe a relationship shift, if you will.
so and later on it was more about that relationship shift than fear of security then maybe. I
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so.
I I kind of agree with that. Even though I was asking you to stay and you wanted to go back home to New Orleans at the time. I'll share with you. I don't know if you've heard this from me, but my whole take on it was, and this was probably the wrongest. I mean, part of this is probably it could be true as well, alongside, why you actually left, what you shared with, your fears and all that. But I think there was a breakdown in communication for us. I think, anytime I shared something, I had certain expectations, and then you said another thing, and you had certain expectations. We weren't speaking the same language. For instance, like, there was a communication breakdown for me because I thought, hey, like Jacob is telling me he's going to do one thing, and we're getting something else, and that's why my reactions were always, hey, what's going on, right? But you saw that as like me kind of either, you know, being negative or telling you you're not doing things right. But
Mhm.
and I never thought I wouldn't have asked you to come back if I thought you were hurting the business or but in your mind you thought, hey, I'm not contributing, I'm hurting the business, and that's what Scott's saying. You know, am I
Right,
wrong there? I think we just for me personally, I needed to work better on my communication, and also being more encouraging because I think I realized at the time maybe I was always so stressed, things were going at
yeah,
a
yeah,
fast pace that it didn't come out the right way. But I in looking back, just from our experience, I really think for us, better communication, and that's not just for co-founders, but I learned that with the employees we had as well, and so now I make a strong effort to open lines of communication and just listen to people better and understand how they feel. I don't think businesses in the past have really cared about that as much as they do today. That's
yeah,
a general theme. Um, because really, for a lot of people, work used to just be a paycheck, but now I think this next generation of workers coming in, they want a more holistic approach to their job, right? They want to find purpose and meaning through it and all that. And if those things aren't communicated well, then there's oftentimes a breakdown, not just between co-founders, but employees in general. So maybe we can all work on that for sure.
I
Um,
think it's great. I was just going to touch on that. I do think I think you hit it largely on the head with that. Like I think I wasn't. I still struggle with communication. I I was always used to working in an environment where I, for instance, in jewelry, you're given a project, you do the whole project by yourself basically because you had, here's the directions, do the whole thing, submit it, done, right? I didn't have to consult people during it. I didn't have to talk to people and update them what I was doing, all those things. And it really didn't help when I got into this environment where it is very helpful to tell people when you're struggling. It's very helpful to tell people what you're doing when you're doing it, and what's going on, or what you're working on. and all those different things. And I didn't do those things, you know. Um, Even in situations where I felt like I was doing a part of the job where I was struggling, and I'm like, this is not what I'm good at. I was very bad with follow through. You know, I would start things, but and how my mind would work was when I started it, it was done. It was checked off the checklist. You know, if I emailed somebody, it was checked off the checklist. It's not, oh wait, you have to actually wait for their response and then email them back. And you know, it was just like, oh, Scott told me to email this supplier. I did it. It's done. No, you have to actually, you know, follow through with that. And I struggled with that. And I think uh, how my mind would work was I would just be like, done, you know, and move on to the next thing. And then a week passes and you're like, hey, what's up with that? And I'm like, you know,
Sent the
and
email.
yeah, I'm like, I sent the email. I just realized they never responded, you know? Um, and that would cause frustrations, rightfully so, you know? And so, yeah, communication, and at least I can speak from my side, obviously. I wasn't a great communicator. I didn't really know how to do it in those moments. And I also wasn't great with follow through on a lot of things. So those responsibilities of having to follow through with all those things are so difficult for me. And I could have once again communicated that. I could have been like, hey Scott, can we have someone help me with this? Can we, you know, whatever it is, like, or can I give this to someone else and I take some, you know, whatever it might have been, but I
And
didn't communicate that in the moment.
another thing that contributed to the pressure building up for us was our failure to, I think, scale in the right way. Because as you said, we're just taking on a lot of responsibilities ourselves. I think by the time you left, we still only had 4 employees, was it? You, myself, and we had
You, me,
Sarah
Hannah,
joined us by
Joe,
that
and
time.
Sterling is what we had. 5.
We had 5.
Mhm.
Okay. But the other staff, they were focused solely on production fulfillment because that's
Yeah,
where we needed the most. So everything else was on our shoulders, right? Everything from the
yeah.
purchasing, product development. Yeah, I think day-to-day operations. We split. I I think we did run things too tightly at that time,
Hmm.
and we kind of imploded. I think we could have hired a little more administrative help for sure. That might have alleviated some of the pains for us. But honestly, a lot of things happened by the time you left that were unanticipated in our business. I think we had doubled down on the Facebook direct to consumer strategy where all of our spending was on Facebook, and you actually left at the right time because it was just at the heels of well, did you leave after the iOS 14 update?
I think I left before that happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so we were still growing at the. So
Yeah.
when the shutdown happened as a result of the pandemic, right? Our business started growing because that helped a lot of online businesses. I think a lot of e-commerce, and so we were growing like crazy. And so you left at a time when things were getting busier and busier. And then right after you left is when the iOS 14, which a lot of people know is just the privacy update, right? As long
Mhm.
as at least for us in the e-commerce space, right? It's allow us to not be able to track people and have as good data as we used to. And so the Facebook ads were converting. When you left, we actually hit a peak. You left at the peak, right? And so I think it was sort of a blessing in a sense. I mean, you leaving because it helped us financially, but also if we had more staff, I think we would have had to let them go, pretty
Yeah.
quickly. I think shortly after you left, that we were still growing. So we did it. We had up to 11 employees at one point. So after you left, we built things up
Mhm.
to 11. And I guess we can delve into this another time, but we faced a whole new set of challenges after you left with our business declining and having to explore other channels. Because we doubled down on Facebook and we should have really been focusing on other sales channels and organic growth. But anyway, that we'll save that for another time. But just letting you know, you left at the right time, and because you already had plans to kind of start another thing anyway, right? So maybe that was in your
No,
heart.
not at that time. No, no, not at all.
You just wanted to get as far away from us as you
I
could.
just jumped. Yeah, I basically just jumped ship. No, no life raft or anything.
So what I know this is bad business friends and we show our failures, but there had to have been something we did well, right? As business partners. I mean, we had our own strengths. We're two different individuals, but there were things working together for us, right? Because we did make a business out of this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What
I was gonna say, I think the especially if you go back to the beginning, um, the way our I would say the vision we shared was a strength of ours. I'd say um, the we were both kind of more so these people with a big vision, and I think the strategy that we could put together behind it to get to it was pretty strong. We accomplished great things. I mean, we went and pitched this idea to people, and we got great responses. Um, I mean, like you said, we built it from nothing. From it may have been an earlier episode, but from $1,200 your first month to 279 in your first year. $279,000 is like nothing to shake a stick at, especially the following year. I don't. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but we almost, if not tripled, the following year.
yeah, we did.
Um,
And that's
so
when you left.
yeah, yeah, those things don't happen by mistake. Uh, I think definitely the friendship was slowly fading as we grew as a company,
Mhm.
but um, our commitment was always there to the company, and I think our belief in it never stopped, and we were all in. All of us were all in.
So after this experience, you're much wiser, now a little bit older. Would you, if you had to do it all over again, you're starting a brand new business today, would you do it with a friend again, or would you do it differently? What are your thoughts? Do you think friends should go into business together?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think so. This is maybe weird, and I'm sure people won't agree with this fully, but I don't think there's a huge difference between friends or strangers going into business together. I think um, reason why is they're both human and they're both going to have the same struggles, right? The only difference, and don't get me wrong, it's a big one, is the relationship factor. Is that if you're going into business with a stranger, the most you can lose is the business, right? And you can lose a relationship, but if it's a stranger, there's not much of one to lose, right? But if you're going into business with a friend, you can not only lose the business, but you can also lose the relationship, which is a friendship. Um, but that is a big deal. I'm not trying to say that's not a big deal, but I really think. I guess my point is that if you can't work well together with a friend, you won't work well with a stranger either. And I think um, you just have to have a lot of, like we were saying earlier, like communication with each other in order to
Well,
do that.
let me ask you this: does that also apply to family? Because you said in the past you've worked with your dad, right? Is it same thing, or do you think that adds an extra dynamic that's different?
It's definitely difficult to navigate. I've had my dad is not a communicator, and that's not my strong suit either. So what's
So it's not
funny is,
about him being your dad. It's more again about any person, communication.
yeah, yeah, I think, well, okay, I'll say this. It definitely does differ between people, right? Because I think I think in certain situations you have family members or friends who you kind of want to find out almost what their motivation is when you're going into business together, more so what their commitment is to. because I think an important conversation with family and friends to have is, are we committed to our friendship first, or are we committed to the business first, right? Because there are some people, believe it or not, that you will have a family member. I could have my father, right, who
Yeah.
I'm assuming that he is committed to our friendship and our relationship first, right? But
Yeah.
he may, in his mind, be, I'm committed to this business first, and Jacob needs to, and this is all in his mind, maybe that Jacob needs to focus more on the business than me being his dad. And when we're here, we're business partners. You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
you could have two totally different mindsets and go into business, and neither of you know what each other's mindset is. And I think that's going to cause a lot of issues. To me, I when I went into revival, my mentality was, oh, this is my best friend. Nothing's going to break our friendship, right? I think you were the same way.
No, I agree. I
Yeah,
think I let our friendship fall to the wayside because I was thinking we're going to be lifelong friends, but I think
right.
friendship, like any other relationship, you have to continue to build it. I mean, same for family, right? You can fall distant from your own parents if you don't communicate with them, from time to
Yeah.
time. So,
'Cause I really sometimes I may be going back on what I said earlier, but I don't think it's always about the money all the time. I don't think like for instance, if you told me Jacob, would you trade your dad for $1 million? Of course not. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like I said, of course not. Most people are not going to trade a family member or a great friend for any amount of money,
yeah,
right? It's more so the communication breakdown that happens. It's like I said, our communication breakdown was, I thought you were thinking I'm not valuable. You're sitting there frustrated with my performance, but we're not communicating that really. We're just having at it,
yeah.
and so it made the relationship feel like it was not worth anything and nothing to fight for anymore, right?
I, yeah, I distinctly remember early on, we had this conversation where I had said to you, even after we had already started the business, I think I said, "Hey, I'm more concerned about saving our friendship, and I'm willing to walk away from the business." And we
Yeah.
said that maybe twice, even, and from what I recall. And so I thought, it seemed like we were pretty clear on that. And I think that's why it took a lot of bravery on your part to just say, "Hey, we are at a place where maybe our friendship isn't going to make it. So, I'm walking away here." And obviously, I didn't see the signs as clearly that we had a breakdown, but clearly, there was tension. And so, but I think that helped us just having time away, because now you've been in NOLA for what, a couple years
Year and
now?
a half years
Yeah.
now,
And so
yes.
we had time to reflect on things. And, I knew like it would take time, but because there was a whole period of time when we weren't talking, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's not easy. I could imagine, gosh, if I went into business with a family member, it'd be the same thing, right? I mean, I would, I'm talking to Lauren, my wife,
Mhm.
about encouraging her to, start something and working with her. But I definitely need to, I don't want to say tread lightly, but just
Mhm.
know that it's easy to have a breakdown, when you're in business mode. So anyway, thanks for sharing all that. Hey, I think we'll wrap this one up, and hopefully we can get into more about what you're doing now and things like that on your next episode. But if you guys are actually listening to this, like and subscribe, and come back for more if you want to hear some more. All right, take care.
Later.
We're bad businessmen.